problem is, Miguel, you suffering from a serious case of misplaced loyalty. The men you're protecting sent you out to steal from the wrong motherfuckers tonight. Everything we've ever done, man, every choice we ever made.
I know, brother.
All right. So I had a thought, and this would have been so dope and cool. I don't even know why nobody thought of this, or even talked to us. Maybe they did, or maybe they didn't. I don't know, but I just seen Stars release the whole Ghost versus Tommy bit, right? About all of the, I guess, collective clips throughout the first season all the way to the last season, right? Now, here's the thing, right? And I just thought about this, and it was so cool and dope, and I don't even know why they didn't even bring this up, because I was even thinking about this at one point in time, and I said, wait a minute, how come they didn't do this? So, what if when Ghost and Tommy was going at it, right? And at the time, Ghost was pissed off at what Tommy did to Angela, right? Maybe somebody did talk about this, but what if Ghost would have sent Tommy to prison, right? Because remember, the one person that Tommy loved at the time and was the most was Holly, right? But he was with Lakeisha. But then I think when the stuff that happened with Lakeisha's death and shit like that, and Tommy thought Ghost did it, right? And then they had like that whole back and forth bit for like a little bit, right? So what if Ghost would have, I don't know, sent the feds along the way of having Tommy go to prison for killing Holly, right? Because keep in mind, when Tommy was strangling Holly and she did scratch them, like part of like the DNA is still was at the time underneath her skin when she was scratching and clawing at him. So you would think that's evidence on his own to have Tommy to get arrested, because technically he was the one to have killed Holly. So in the sense of things, Ghost and Tommy was the ones that have buried Holly. So you would have thought that because he was so pissed off at what Tommy did to Angela, of killing Angela, then the perfect revenge for Ghost would have had Tommy go to prison for killing Holly. Don't you know how dope that would have been? Now keep in mind, I know some people probably would have maybe disagreed with this and probably would have got upset, like, nah, man, Ghost would have never did that because, Tommy is his man. And you're right. You are a 100% right about this, that yes, Tommy is his Ghost's man. So of course he wouldn't do that to him because that's his man's, right? But remember how pissed off Ghost was when Tommy killed Angela. Despite everything that happened between Ghost and Angela, right? That would have never came down to it. Of, Ghost killing Angela, and despite everything that happened, right, between everybody, right? Angela at the end of the day was Ghost's forever love, right? And everybody has been there who have had a forever love with somebody that they love more than maybe life itself, right? And to have that person be taken away from you, come on. And to be honest with you, when they had that crash out, when Ghost was crashing out, and he had that beef with Tommy, I don't know. Maybe I think that should have been the entirety of season 6, but then I can understand because Jason was still there, and Jason was at the time trying to get like both Tommy and Ghost together, despite them, beefing and shit like that. Like, I'm not really fucking with him because after what he did. And that's when Jason was like, well, since y'all have this whole little squabble, Ghost, I want you to pay me $100,000 a week. Yeah, so he was like, nah, man, like we need this fucking business to work together, so I need you to pay me $100K a week, right? Now, if that bit wasn't the thing, and let's just say Ghost killed Jason, right, and then continued his war with Tommy, shit, or better yet, if he couldn't kill his own brother, right, despite him trying to kill Tommy and having several attempts at it, he would have said, you know what, fuck this, and it would have made so much sense. And I don't know why they didn't think of this. He did the same thing that he did to Kanan. He would do Tommy like he did Kanan, right? Have him go to prison on some trumped up charges. But in this case, it would have not been trumped up charges because it would have been true. So instead of having, Tommy escaping and going off on his own merry way, Tommy would have went to prison for killing Holly, and that would have been Ghost's revenge towards Tommy, to going like, well, I love you. I tried to kill you, but you know what, Tommy? I forgive you. Woo, Tommy, you under arrest. and then Tommy's pissed. Now keep in mind, Tommy ain't no rat, so he's not gonna stooge out anything that what Ghost did. Hell fucking no. Because when they had Tommy, I think arrested at the time, I think this was either in season 2 or season 1 of Power. And that's when Angela was, talking to Tommy like, oh, because at the time it was all still being connected to the whole Lobos bit. But it would have made so much sense. I don't know why they didn't think of this, because it just came to my head. And I said, you know what? This would have made so much sense of having Ghost get his ultimate revenge against Tommy and going like, I may have lost the love of my life, but you know what? And I still love you like a brother, but I love you too much to kill you. And he does the same shit that he did to Kanan and have him be put away in prison. Because I understand that in Raising Kanan, we're going to get the whole story of, Breeze and everything that's going to, go down, and Ghost killing Breeze, and then how Ghost sent Kanan to prison, and the trumped up charges that Kanan was explaining to Sean in the beginning parts of Power, of how the reason why they didn't have father-son time fully is because Ghost sent them away to prison. But damn, they should have did that. They should have absolutely did that and had it in a way where it would have made so much sense. Now, granted, I think everything would have still been the same way that it was of having Tariq kill Ghost. Fuck it, fine. That would have been a thing. But to make it more interesting, because then Tommy's in prison, right? And he doesn't get the 411 until like I don't know, years later, or not years later, but months later or some shit, like maybe Tasha or Tariq, somebody goes to prison, or word gets out, right? Or just word gets out on the news or some shit that, somebody killed Ghost in Truth. And then Tommy would have been, I would have said, broken up. But he would have been like, he would have had mixed emotions, because he would have been sad that he lost Ghost, but then he would have been conflicted, like, Ghost put him here. So his feelings of the matter would have been very complicated, but it would have made much sense if that would have been the case. That would have been the case of how his emotions would have been conflicted of Ghost being killed. Now, would he have guessed it? Oh, he would have had like a couple of ideas of maybe who would have killed him, but he would have suspected Tariq in doing it. He would have thought like maybe somebody else would have got the drop on him. But then at the same time, he's sitting in prison, he's conflicting on the matter. So, oh God, come on, that shit would have been fucking crazy good if they would have done some shit like that and having him go to prison for all that shit that happened. And then you could have had like, okay, Tasha tell Paz that, well, it was really Tommy that killed Angela. But then at the same time, Tasha could have told Paz, like, even though he did kill Angela, but then would have explained that Ghost did some shit, he had Tommy go to prison for killing Holly, some shit would have been out there. So at the same time, Paz would have not been able to get her revenge, but she would have been at peace, sort of at peace with it, to know that Tommy's going to be spending maybe the rest of his life in prison, knowing that he killed somebody, but this is what he sort of gets for killing Angela. So he's going to rot away in prison. What the fuck? See how good that shit would have been? You see how good that shit would have been? That shit would have been fucking crazy good if they would have done some shit like that. But unfortunately, these writers, they not thinking like this. Cause it had me thinking. It really did. It had me thinking, because I said, she scratched him and it was DNA under her fingerprints, on her fingernails. So I'm like, this actually makes a lot of sense. How come they didn't come back to this idea? Now, I would have said they could have done something like this in the future, but I don't even think they care. Because think about it. Because, all right, Power Legacies, right? Tariq and Tommy, sure. But I guess the big question is, how is it going to really all end for Tommy and Tariq? What's going to happen? Death or prison? Or they make enough money and they just go, all right, that's it, and they're going to go on their merry way. But we know both of these guys don't ever want to leave the game. So what's going to most likely happen? But it's like, damn it, if they didn't go down this path, right? But then obviously, the full focus would have just been on Tariq, because then everything would have been on Tariq. It would have not been Tommy, because Tommy would have been in prison. But I would have liked the idea of Tariq going to prison, visiting Tommy, and getting like lessons from Tommy, and Tommy kind of like, you know, giving him some advice, telling him about maybe Noma at the time when Tariq was dealing with Mecca, right? Tommy would have been like that old school guru head of being in prison, and then just giving Tariq some advice and telling him what to do and shit like that. Hell, maybe could have been moving some weight in prison. Who knows, right? It could have been something. It could have been something to keep Tommy on his feet. Like, there could have been more ways you could have spent the story for Tommy being in prison. It would have not been a lot compared to what he's doing in Chicago, but I think it would have been dope, because then Tariq would have been visiting Tommy in prison. Now, I guess after those, you know, prison visits from Tommy, maybe at the time, I think, you know, Tommy would have been asking those questions like to Tariq, like, okay, who killed Ghost? What happened to Ghost? And da da da. But then I think either Tariq would have told Tommy about it, and I think Tommy might have been conflicted, probably even wanted to maybe kill Tariq. Who knows? But I think his feelings of the matter would have been very conflicted, because knowing that, yeah, his best friend sent him to prison, but then knowing that his son actually killed his best friend, again, his emotions would have been very conflicted on how he would have felt about Ghost in the matter. But I think it would have made a lot of sense for Tommy to being like still there for Tariq and giving him advice on what to do, how to manage well in the streets and this and that. I think that's what he would have done, because remember how in the original Power, when Sean was in prison visiting Kanan, and Kanan was always asking Sean questions like, how was Ghost treating you? Is Ghost, you know, putting you down? Because at the time when Kanan was in prison, he thought Sean was being mentored by Ghost, and him, you know, selling drugs, moving weight, right? He thought he was doing all that stuff until he told him, he said, no, I'm just his driver. He said, yo, he don't got you doing, nah, I'm just his driver. Because Ghost kept Sean out of that limelight. He kept him out of like the nitty gritty stuff, and just said, no, you're going to be my driver. I'm going to do all that other shit. You're just going to be my driver. So in a way, Kanan wanted Sean to be like him and to be a person in the streets and, you know, moving drugs and killing people, but that was never the case, right? But I think that storyline would have been set up for Tommy and Tariq, where Tariq is visiting Tommy in prison, and Tommy's giving him all the pointers on what to do and what not to do, and right, and then sort of like a student type, master, sensei, whatever bit that you may call it. I think that would have been much more interesting for the story of going forward, of having Tariq telling Tommy about these people like the Tejada. He met these group of people like the Tejada, right? Jabari's being nosy, Mecca, Noma, right? Fucking what's his face, Zion. Tug could have told him all that shit and kept him up to date, like who's like Zion. Oh, I think I heard of him, shit like that. Never heard of him. Boy, I'm telling you, man, yo, let me get in that fucking room, man. Let me start writing. Come on, man, put me on that team. Put me on that team, man, because the shit that I was thinking about, I said, fuck, why they didn't do this? This would have made much more sense for the last season of the original Power. But golly, they could have done some shit like that, and it would have made sense. Ghost dies, Tommy in prison, and that bastard Tariq is running free. Fuck, they messed up. But let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about my idea and my theory? Like, do you think I'm bugging? Do you think I'm tripping? Or do y'all actually like this idea? And like, yo, this shit probably would have been fucking cool if they would have done this. But I know it's been what, 5-6 years now since it ended. I think 5 years. But I know it's been a long time. I know it is what it is now. But I'm just saying. But as always, you know, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I catch you all in the next one.
Yeah, listen, silk nights, crisp air, you and me talk rare, edge of the room, eyes dare, money on mine, barely dare, we breathe, slow heartbeat aware, just a vibe, just a glare.